Rosalie should be joining, but I believe she's still connected as well. So we're going to start right now, and please just promote her once, please just let her into the room once she's logged in. We are going to now call the hearing to order. Mia, if I can ask again, if you can pull double duty in terms of just maintaining notes.
Sure.
Thank you very much. And I see we are now recording as well. The time is now 6:10. We are calling the hearing to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Fred Baptiste. I serve as the chair of CB9. And the purpose of today's hearing is a review of the district needs statement that is being prepared on behalf of CB9, which will be forwarded to the mayor's office as they consider the budget for the new year. This is an annually mandated process in which the community board develops its capital and expense requests. Those are reviewed by the board, made public made also public. We are supposed to take commentary, at which point we forward that. Which you should have received for this evening. You should have received an agenda along with a copy of the expense and the capital requests. So very briefly, as opposed to reading it to the members, we will open the floor at this time for any members who have comments on any of the items within. Actually, let's do this in orderly fashion. We'll comment on the capital expenses at this time. Okay. Are there any members who have comment with respect to the capital expenses? All right, and if there are any questions, members can ask at this time as well with respect to the documents.
Board member Suki Chung has her hand raised.
Yes, go ahead, Suki.
Hey, I just wanted to say sewers. I saw that it made it into the capital expense request, so I'm happy about that. But I would love to hear from DEP what's going on, because it's pretty clear that they identified several areas of our community that were prone to flood risk in high rains.
No, absolutely. And it's ironic that we're having that comes up today as part of this conversation as we're going through a nor'easter. And I think this is something that's been discussed in committees as well with respect to the general status of the catch basins, maintenance, and all the other issues that go along with that. So that's definitely part of an extended conversation, but it's definitely coming up as a capital expense where they need to make some investments in the infrastructure. It's way past due at this point. Board member Melanie Lewis, yes, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm looking over the renovations or upgrades in reference to the precinct. And I'm just, to be quite honest with you, I'm thinking of all that our community has gone through during COVID-19 and just the whole, I know this might sound like another subject, but it's all relative in relation to when some folks wanted to defund police and all of that. And we know that there's a specific budget, that, our precincts receive. And I'm just curious as to how this all works, because I'm thinking that, specific city agencies already get a specific amount of funds towards what they would need. And I guess, as we look at our needs, this is just in a general assessment. Is there like a certain percentage that we're allocated that we can then give to city agencies, or is there a specific amount that is already allotted for them to have these needs rectified and satisfied as necessary?
with respect to the funding process, and then Mia and Dante, if you have more perspective, or if I goof it up, let me know. So with respect to that, what these requests do is it actually goes to the Office of Management and Budget, in which they'll negotiate with the City Council in terms of how much money is going to be prioritized towards different needs. So we don't particularly get the funding, or it's not something that comes into us, but rather it's something OMB will make sure to make the allocation to the appropriate budget, which would be NYPD, and they would earmark it for that specific request if they actually approve it. Does that sound correct? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up. Mia's like, I don't know, but she'll let us fly for now.
Thank you.
I have a question about that.
Yes, Melissa, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
yes, Melissa,
was I supposed to do the raise hand? Yeah, I did. Sorry about the background. Is that for some kind of new initiative, or is it just regular general NYPD budget?
General NYPD budget. So what our requests do is basically they add these priorities for the district in terms of, we're saying, listen, the police station is falling apart. So it's a need, and it's something that we're requesting being prioritized as part of the budget.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Welcome. Suki, I do see you have your hand up again.
Yeah, I also wanted to say, in regards to the requests for a community center or youth center, I do agree with that. And I wonder whether it might make sense for us to work with Community Board 14 or 17 in the areas where we overlap, because I do recall a suggestion by one of the city council candidates for District 40 that there's this part of the 70th police precinct on Prospect Park South. They're sitting on like a fairly large sort of like park-like thing that could be used for a community center. And if there's a way that we can get the NYPD to use their PAL budget or community affairs budget or something as well, that might be worth thinking about.
No, definitely something to note. And I would probably recommend highly, if you could send a note to the district office, that's something we can actually probably introduce. This might be something that I would possibly Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs might be able to take up, or Youth Services, where we can actually extend that conversation, where we can have that developed and see if this is something we can pursue in terms of actually making that a suggestion and making that real.
Will do. Thanks.
Melissa, do you see your hand?
Oh, I was going to say the same thing you said about, like, it sounds like more something for Parks and Recs instead of NYPD. Like Parks and Recs is usually the one that does the community centers. So you said it already. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great minds thinking alike. That's it. All right. Are there any other questions or suggestions with respect to the capital budget?
Hi, Fred, Felice. What does type C mean? I was looking at the types.
Oh,
type
I'm not
means
sure.
if it's type C, it's capital. If it's E, it's expense.
Okay.
Thank you, Dante. Thank you, Fred.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dante. All right. Are there any other questions?
Mina, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mina. I was looking at the actual
It's
document.
okay.
I apologize. Go ahead, Mina.
No, my question is regarding the additional parking for the precincts. Where would the parking be? Do they expand anywhere or tell us where they would plan on? It says, where does it say?
Now,
It says
this is,
add parking facilities.
right. This is an item that has actually been on our request for a number of years now. So the thing is, it's a known issue in terms of the parking situation over there. So what we do is we do add it as a capital request, because obviously there is going to need to be some movement with respect to, they're going to have to purchase something or find some facility or rent some facility. So it comes up as part of the budget request, where we're asking them to begin that process, at least in terms of identifying, perform the study, identifying what spaces are actually available to do this, and hopefully fund and allocate, and allocate funding towards that. Yeah, so so the answer is, yeah, there'll probably be some purchase, but this is a process that we're saying should start as part of this budget process.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions with respect to the capital expenses? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to close on capital expenses, and I would entertain any comments or questions with regards to the expense requests, the expense budget requests document. Okay. Are there any questions with respect to the expense budget request document?
Sorry, I
Suki
just
and
joined.
Melanie have
I
their hand.
don't know where you were. Hi,
sorry.
everybody. I said, sorry, I just joined. You asked were there questions and I don't know what you were talking about.
No worries, Ms. Blackwell. So yeah, so we're currently reviewing you should have received draft documents for the capital budget requests and for the expense budget requests. So
Oh,
we had just taken questions and comments for the capital, and we're now actually reviewing the expense budget request document. So we're entertaining any questions or comments on those.
Oh, thanks
so I
for the
guess you have a
update.
minute or two. No problem. If you have, if you want, you can take a couple of minutes to review. I think I see a couple of board members who have questions. So we'll start with Suki and then we'll go to Melanie.
Okay.
Okay, Suki, go ahead.
Yeah, so I did notice a request for traffic calming on Parkside Avenue between Flatbush and Ocean. I've actually, I have noticed people running the red light that's on Parkside Avenue between Ocean and the Park Circle, which is actually not quite in our community board, but so I think that is an issue. But the complaint that I've been hearing is that since they changed the traffic signals at the Park Circle, that there's been major congestion and emergency vehicles are getting stuck along that stretch. So it seems kind of like maybe not, there's obviously problems there, but the request to like slow traffic seems to be kind of the opposite of what people are complaining about. They're complaining that since they changed the traffic signals, that there's been some sort of congestion problem.
Right. Which number item was that? Just so I can look at it real quick as well.
Okay, I'd have to look at it. There was like a whole slew of traffic related requests. But if I send it to you and to Carmen, I think
I can address what the issue Soki's talking about. So Suki, the situation on Parkside from Flatbush to Ocean, and actually Parkside leading all the way down to the Park Circle going into the Fort Hamilton Parkway and everything.
Yeah.
That actually has come about as a result of the protected bike lane. If I'm sure you know, and I took a ride down there to see for myself, because there has been complaint coming from the hospitals about the ambulances not being able to get through because the parking now is in the middle of the street. Is not at the curb anymore because the curbside is where the bike lane is. So the parking is now in the middle. So instead of two, used to be there's only one. And the ambulances get stuck. They can't go anywhere because the cars are parked. So they cannot even get on, if you stop at the red light and it's 10 cars parked stopped at the red light and the ambulance is gonna get somebody to the hospital who's on a life-threatening situation. The situation it is with DOT is that they obviously did not do proper study when they decided to install those protected bike lane, not taking into consideration that Parkside is a major route when it comes to ambulances going back and forth to the hospital. What you see in the need assessment is actually things that constituents have brought to our attention that live on Parkside. And they talk about the situation on Parkside and Nostrand where people run lights, they try to make the light, the bus is, gets stuck sometime in the middle of the traffic light when it changes. So it's totally different from the situation that you are talking about. So actually what you're talking about is something that needs to be added as an additional item and not taking away what's there, because that situation still persists. The constituents still complaining about the traffic situation on Parkside.
Okay, got it,
North
Carmen,
Trend
thank
going
you.
upwards to Bedford and Rogers.
Got
And
it,
we
thanks.
actually, it's actually the issue of the bus going up Parkside and also obstructing traffic and creating problems early in the morning during rush hour and in the evening.
Yeah, it just seemed like a very narrow road for a bus route.
Right. So again, so what the situation you're talking about on Parkside, that is something that DOT created when they did those protected bike lane and not taking into consideration that those ambulances have to travel that route back and forth to different hospitals.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Carmen. And so I think to that suggestion, if there's any recommendations or anything additional, that should probably be added, we can definitely take that commentary. The only thing, and I'll say this, and I'll repeat this at the end of the hearing as well, is that any additional commentary or suggestions need to be in relatively quickly because we do have to submit by the end of the month. So if we can get any comments or if you could draft something quickly to get to the office by close of business tomorrow, that can be reviewed and hopefully included. I think, well, I'm speaking for Dante and team, but Dante, is that correct? Is that something possible?
Yes, that's possible. Yeah, if they could get it to me by close of business tomorrow, I'll look at it. Please, try to be as specific and detailed as possible. And then I can add it.
Okay, thank you very much, Dante. We had next on the list, Melanie.
Yes, so I'm glad that we have a great, oh, I am unmuted. Okay. I'm glad that we have a great diverse amount of initiatives here in relation to what we need in our district. But I do have a question pertaining to our community board and just community boards in general. Is there like a certain, like a standard number of staffers or a certain standard across the city? And what does that look like in relation to our amazing mighty staff of 3 that was 2? And like what does that look like?
There is no set number of staff. The number of staff is basically how much your budget can support. So I want to say something very close to uniform in terms of the allocation that they give for what they call personnel services, PS. So it's a matter of the mix is going to vary depending on what office you go to. So I've seen offices with 2, I've seen offices with 3. I've seen offices go as far as 4. I don't know how they stretch it that far. And I've seen offices with only 1. So, I mean, it really depends on how it's allocated within the office. Obviously, salaries, depending on the salary mix, that's going to affect how much that is. But I think what the general statement is in terms of the work, because of the variety of work and detail that goes into the district office, the things that go into there, whatever the budget is probably needs to be augmented significantly because there's so much more that needs to be done between professional work, between consulting, between part-timers if it's required. But I think that's the leeway and flexibility that needs to be provided in terms of dollars to the district managers.
Thank you. Breaking that down. I just wanted everybody to hear it and for me to get more of an understanding. So thank you.
And if I also add as well, it's like I think just because of the way that the budgets go, it doesn't give much flexibility in the terms of us being able to appropriately compensate our staff. So yeah, there need to be serious conversations about that as well, because they need to, they need to be appropriately compensated. Okay, Mr. Almanor, I see you.
Yes, I wanted to say something regarding the situation of the Parkside Flatbush. A suggestion should be during rush hours to have no parking, or at least on one side, to ease the transportation in there. And also the recommendation is to put a arrow, returning arrow, if you're going south on Flatbush to turn on Parkside. And I don't know if that's part of I didn't get a chance to completely review the capital expense. So you said this can be added later in the commentary.
Absolutely. Okay. I will recognize myself. There is just one item I have with respect to item number 3, with respect to the land, studying the land use and zoning to better match the current or future neighborhood needs. Now, this one is an interesting one, and I am conflicted in this one in terms of how we approach. I think that, especially for newer board members, there have been definitely arguments both in favor of and in opposition to actually requesting the study. In terms of there are concerns over what the outcomes of that actually become. In terms of, okay, there's a study done, and if they see it not quite in the way, or if it's spun not quite in the way the community wants it, all of a sudden we end up seeing things that we don't necessarily want or need in the district. But what I do think is definitely this is a conversation that is something that should start happening in terms of what the desires are of the neighborhood. And this is something that I think that is probably going to be under the purview of the ULURP committee to start that conversation. But I'm not sure if we want to put that forward quite as a budget request yet, only because we don't have control over that process once it goes through. Because sometimes the best thing they can do is give you what you asked for, and then it ends up being something you absolutely didn't ask for. So that might be a conversation in terms of something we don't put it as a budget request, but rather we have that as a conversation internally in terms of we shape the dialogue in terms of how we want that to go. All right. I do see a couple of attendees as well. Dante, is there anyone who signed up for commentary who's present right now?
Mia, do you recognize any of these names?
I'm not sure of the phone number. I see Teresa Westerdahl. I'm not sure. I believe that is Tara Fireball, so I'm not sure if she signed up to speak. I'm assuming so. I guess, do we want to call on the attendees if they would like to provide some input to raise their hand using the raise hand function?
Well, sure, absolutely. They're not on the list. Let's do this first. Are there any other board members who have any questions or comments with respect to the expense budget?
This is Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Chris.
Okay. And I apologize if I missed it because I got disconnected earlier, but I looked at the list that we put together, and it's very extensive. And I'm just wondering, how do we prioritize within that list? It's a sort of general question. Thank you.
Excellent question. Actually, Mia, I know you've worked on that before. Is the order that is listed in the priority, like, is it appropriate to move things up and down, or
yes,
is it necessary?
Yes, the community board has a discretion to prioritize the listing of those items.
Thank you very much for that.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the answer. So if you have items, and that goes for all the board members, if you have items that you think should be moved up in terms of priority, this is also the opportunity to make that suggestion as well.
Yeah, I would recommend, if there's things that are of high priority to the board, that discussion happens now, rather than receiving 15 emails from 15 different people regarding 15 different priorities. Once the discussion is had, we will have it on the record, and then I will make sure that they are moved up on the document accordingly.
Thanks, Dante and Mia and Fred. That's helpful. I think with that being said, then I would like to offer for consideration to the folks on this call, prioritizing more funding for garbage cans. And I know we did a great job of that last year and installed many garbage cans throughout the district. But there are still some areas that have the old garbage cans that are overflowing. And as we saw today with the storm, and we saw about a month ago with Hurricane Ida, whenever there's a lot of rain, any of that garbage that's overflown from the cans can very easily get stuck in the catch basins and contribute to ponding and flooding. So something I would offer for this group to consider, and I welcome thoughts from everyone on the call. Thank you.
If I could ask, thank you for that recommendation. If you had to move it up on the list, how far would you is your recommendation? Would you want to move that up?
Sorry, as you can tell, I'm outside. I don't have the list in front of me, but I would like to make it, a priority from an Environmental Protection Committee standpoint. I don't know if we're thinking of one priority for committee, but I would like to have it be near the top of the list, in part also because I know with the incoming council member in District 40, she has discussed prioritizing getting extra funds for sanitation, or at the very least, making some movement on sanitation issues. So it could be an opportunity for us to push it and align with an elected official as well. I know that's not a specific answer, but in terms of what number, but hopefully that's helpful.
No, thank you. No, thank you very much for that. Let me see if I have anything I can recommend. Well, listen, while I look at the list, let me see. Is there anyone else? Oh, Suki, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You recognize.
So just to comment on what Christian is saying, I agree that garbage is a major problem. I would say make sure that the cans are locked, that they can't be, it's not the kind that can be opened from the side. Some of the older metal type cans can be opened from the side, which means the garbage can be taken out and strewn all over the street. The second thing I would say is I've often noticed people like little mounds of garbage just placed next to the garbage can. So I think it has to go along with enforcement, which I think was also a request, and education, so that, people aren't placing garbage in inappropriate places.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Definitely noted. Melissa, we see you as well.
Yeah, just actually a question for Suki. So the garbage that's being placed on the side of the garbage can, is it because the garbage can is overflowed and people are putting it there? Or is it because people are just being lazy and just putting it there?
I've asked a couple of the merchants next who are in front of those cans, and some of them claim that people from the apartment buildings are bringing garbage to the corner. I don't know. I've never actually seen anyone doing that, except there was one pile in front of, like on Flatbush Avenue, that I actually saw people passing by just like dumping stuff there. And like the more the pile grows, the more people want to dump there. So I don't know the answer to that, but I think possibly it's people who don't know that they're not allowed to put it there.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I misunderstood. I thought it was like maybe the issue was that there needed to be more frequent pickup of the garbage, and then it was overflowed, so people just put stuff on the ground next to it. So that's what I
mean, I've
Sorry.
definitely seen overflowing cans too. I think all of the above is an issue. I don't know how to say that.
And you're probably right, where it is, it's a confluence of a number of those issues altogether. So I think there's definitely something to look at. But definitely, I think more garbage cans, I think helps provide, the more receptacles, I think it definitely helps. But to your point, I think we probably also need to talk about the service issues in terms of making sure that the district is appropriately serviced. And I would always recommend if we have known issues or, if we see problems or anything like that, where we know that the garbage is not being picked up regularly, they skip a stop or, they take a day off or whatever else, to always let the board office know, because the district manager has a monthly service cabinet meeting, so he can address those service issues with the sanitation directly. All right, I do see Lorianne Wolseley, then I see Mina,
I'm here.
and okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Lorianne.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I definitely think that there is a service issue where I see a lot of the newer garbage cans overflow. So there's trash on the side. The trash is basically falling out of the trash cans. So I think it's a service issue, and maybe there should be more trash cans placed in certain areas. So I'm not too far from Winthrop and Nostrand, and I just drove down Nostrand Avenue, and I saw that there was trash all over Nostrand and Winthrop. So on the four corners, I've noticed that. So that definitely should be something that is addressed.
No, thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. So Dante, I think if we just make that note, we know that corridor we need to look at. Okay, so I'm going to recognize Mina. After that, I do see some members of the public who are here. If they have any questions, I do want an opportunity for them to entertain questions from them as well. So we'll go with Mina, and then if there's any members of the attendees who would like to speak, if you can raise your hand. If you're on the phone, if you hit *9, that will that's the raise hand function, and we can recognize you at that point. Go ahead, Mina, I'm sorry.
I think that all of the issues that Suki discussed regarding the garbage cans are true, but also I think that we need to also have a campaign where we remind people to actually use the garbage cans, because they're there and some people just don't use them. And the issue where I do see a lot of, excuse me, I did notice a lot of the new cans, which are great, but sometimes the opening isn't big enough for some of the stuff that people are putting in there, which, yes, people from the buildings, I believe, are coming down and putting things that they don't want to walk to specific areas in their building where they're supposed to put their garbage. They just put it on the corner. But also another issue that I noticed is that when the stuff that's on the side of the cans doesn't get picked up by the sanitation department for whatever reason, or if there is an overflow and if it rains the next day, yes, there is garbage all over the place. And even with the sanitation trucks coming out to clean the streets aren't getting cleaned, because one of the things I noticed on Nostrand Avenue and now I don't know where I live, Nostrand and Sterling Street at the corner, in the mornings when the sanitation truck comes down, it's supposed to come down around 7 a.m. That is also the same time that a lot of the sanitation workers gather in the different areas around the corner from me, and they go and they pick up their coffee. So you'll have sanitation trucks blocking the sanitation, the street sweeper. So then the street sweeper just goes around the sanitation trucks, as opposed to they're not gonna tell their friends to move, So I noticed that a lot of times that even though the sanitation truck does, the sweeper comes by, the sweeper does not go straight down the street because there are cars double parked there. And sometimes the cars or trucks that are double parked there are actual sanitation trucks that are getting their morning breakfast or so on and so forth at that corner. So lots of issues on that corner when it pertains to garbage. So the garbage cans are a great thing, but if the street isn't getting swept correctly the first time around, the garbage just stays there.
No, absolutely. Thanks for that point. Augustine, I do see you, but I did say that I wanted to just recognize a couple members of the public. I will come right back to you though, so keep your hand raised. We will come right back to you before we close. And just as a time check, I just want to let everybody know. So we have about 15 minutes left. We have a board meeting scheduled for 7, so we have a hard stop. So I want to make sure that we kind of able to wrap up and conclude very shortly. Okay, I do see the hand raised for phone number ending in 7189. If you could promote them to a panelist so they can address the board. Okay, if you're on the phone, you've been promoted, you should be able to speak. So to unmute yourself, just hit *6. Okay, caller ending. Oh, okay. Did they drop off? Okay, looks like they fell off. Okay. All right, are there any other attendees who wish to address the board, any of the items on the expense or the capital budget at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. All right, at this time, Ms. Blackwell, I know you had your hand raised. We'll recognize you at this time. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. I just wanted to add to that equation and saying over the past 19 months, every city agency in existence is working at less than half mast and killing the current staff they have. Maybe some job fairs, job openings, reaching out to these agencies and, you know, trying to fill some of the positions to put people to do the things, especially sanitation, picking up the trash and all of that, because when that trash floods those vents where the water goes, it floods the subways, the streets, destroys cars, all kinds of nonsense, as well as not healthy for us walking these blocks with it backing up, being in the water and creating all the havoc it's creating. So that might be something we could look at.
And I agree 100%. And it's funny because as you mentioned that, we're really talking about a lot of the issues sometimes are related. When we're talking about the garbage overflows, and we're talking about clogged, catch basins, when we're talking about, a number of these things, sometimes these things are interrelated. So, and you're right, sometimes we can't just think about them one piece at a time. We need to be thinking about how do we address all of them. So in addressing all of them, we take care of a bunch of things at one time. So, I think thank you very much for bringing all those points.
No problem.
Okay, I do see number ending in 7189. I think they're back in. Can you promote them? Well, okay, I see they're in. Can you unmute them? Oh, perfect.
Hello. Hi,
Yeah,
this is
hello.
Stuart Dahlberg. I want to add my support for the question about the putting an item up about the garbage. In particular, I note that on the non-residential areas, whether it's adjacent to subways or adjacent to stores, people find there's no place for them to dump their little garbage, and they throw it around that wherever they can. There's a lack of the receptacles, and there's also a rat problem, and both of them would be solved with this matter. And I feel that at some time that committee should take a walking tour of the commercial areas or a driving tour, and see for themselves how they're overstrung. As far as the catch basin thing is concerned, my impression is that a lot of the catch basins have been stuffed up or eliminated, and the next administration should look into reopening them. When it rains, the water goes all over, you wash your shoes. Anyway, that's what I call to point out that the commercial areas need attention. Also, the areas being developed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dahlberg. Appreciate it. Points well taken. Points well taken. All right. At this time, there's one final call. Are there any comments? The time is about 6:49. We do need to adjourn shortly because we do need to turn over to the board meeting. Are there any final comments or any recommendations with respect to the expense or the capital budgets? Okay. Seeing none. I want to thank everyone for joining this evening with respect to, for the input with respect to the statement of needs. This is a process that we're mandated to do, and I'm very happy with the energy and the thoughtfulness which all the attendees this evening have approached this process. So next steps are going to be that the district office is going to finalize the document. It will be submitted on behalf of CB9. It's going to go forward. At some point, there are actually going to be responses that will come back to the board as well with respect to the different items, at which point we will have an opportunity to respond. I want us to be very aware of that as well, because this is going to be our opportunity to really kind of weigh in. And I think that one of the things I want to be cognizant of is when, especially for some of these requests, through the committees and through the district office, we want to get numbers. What are the hard numbers? Because I want to move us from a point where we're saying we're getting no's to, okay, well, listen, how much can you actually do? So if you can't do, and if you can't do $1 million, can you do $50,000 to cure one problem this fiscal year? And we'll tackle the rest next year. So we're going to start moving towards that in terms of our conversations, how we approach it. We're going to start trying to put dollar figures towards items. So that way we can make sure, and we're going to try and track them year over year as well. Because I don't want this to become a process where they just tell you, no, we don't have the money every year. You should be able to say, no, I don't have $1 million this year, but I have X amount of money. And then we can track to see how this goes, and we keep our requests going, on a year over year basis. But again, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our district office staff. I want to thank our district manager, Dante. I want to thank our assistant district manager, Mia, our community assistant, Khalid, for all the work they do, for soliciting the input that they received. And again, I thank the board, and we will keep everyone posted as we go through this process. The time is now 6:51. At this time, we are going to adjourn. Everyone, good night, and I will see you in the general board meeting in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.